All right, hello and welcome back again. Painting trees number 5. So I'm gonna bet by just looking at our sheet you can guess what kind of tree we're going to be painting. We are going to be painting a palm tree. Um, I find when I teach students how to paint trees, they find this to be the trickiest one, which is why I hold off until now, and we're going to use a lot of stuff we've already kind of used. First of all, name on the paper. And for supplies, you are going to need some paint. I'm going to use a leftover paint palette from somebody else. You need your water cup with a tiny bit of water in it, paper towel as always, and then you are going to need your thick to thin brush and a very, very small brush. I am also going to show you how to use a small fan brush when we get up to these palm leaves. So these two we'll use for the palm leaves, and this one we will use for the tree trunk. If you don't want to use a fan brush, you do not have to. I'm just going to show you how, because some people find the small brush easier, some people find the fan brush easier when it comes to the leaves. But just like with our other trees, we are starting thick to thin. So move my other papers quick. You are going to start by loading up your brush like we have. Trunk, right? Thick line, so I put it all the way down and I go slowly up along the trunk. If you want it thicker, load up your brush again, put your line next to it, and do it again. I ran out of paint towards the top here, so I'm going to pick up just a little bit and I'm just going to touch that up and clean up the bottom part there. Okay, now my palm tree, I'm doing 4 palm leaves coming off of it. I feel like that's usually a good amount of space, but sometimes you'll add little ones. If you're using a reference photo, you'll look at your photo to see how many you need. So here I'm gonna, same thing, thick towards the middle, thin at the end. That was a good one. And another. And another. Sorry if my hand is blocking. And another. If you're still struggling with thick to thin lines, it is probably best that you grab a blank piece of paper and you just practice some. If you're jumping into this one on a new day and you haven't practiced your thick to thin lines yet today, sometimes you need a little warm up. You might need a piece of paper to paint some of those thick to thin lines. Sometimes if you're having trouble, like see how I'm painting upward and I'm getting thinner as I go upward. Sometimes when people struggle with that, I tell them turn the paper down, so now it's as you're pulling down, you're getting thinner. It's easier to lift it up as you're going down for some people. Okay. So I have this. I'm done with this brush for now. So I'm going to put that in my water. Now I'm going to grab my teeny tiny brush. And really, it doesn't actually matter if it's square at the end, this is a round brush, right? It doesn't have the square end to it. But you need a teeny tiny brush. Like this is the biggest you would want to go for a paintbrush. Okay? And like for reference, there's my pen. So like teeny, teeny, tiny. The key to palm leaves is the smallest amount of paint that you can have on your brush. Okay? You're going to be getting paint again many times because you want it to be scratchy. If it's not scratchy, it's not going to look right. So I'm going to dip my paint in the my brush in the paint. Then, kind of like we did before, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to tap off a bunch of that paint until there's hardly anything on there. Okay? If you have a goopy brush, this will not work. Now, I'm going back to my palm tree, and you don't have to draw this in on yours, but I just want to show you. I'm going to be making little C shapes all the way to the end. Okay, that's the motion that I'm going to do, the letter C. So when I do it with my paintbrush, I'll just show you guys up here. It's going to look like this. C, C, C. So it looks like I tapped off a little too much paint that time. That's okay. So it'll be C, 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 C. So if you need to practice this off to the side, do it. If you don't think you have to, that's all good. Give it a try. If your trees don't look good, I'm going to have you do it again, though, because it's more about the techniques we're using than about the actual trees themselves. So here, I'm going to go to the center, and I'm going to have big letter C's toward the middle. So C, 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 C. As I run out of paint, go back, tap it off a little bit. So you guys can't quite see that. Okay, and go for it again. Right? Ran out of paint again towards the end. Get some more. Maybe I had a little too much paint on my brush that time. So that's one branch. Towards the middle here, do you see how I have that little white gap? I don't really want that, so I'm just gonna erase it with my brush. Okay, don't be afraid to let some of it be a little messy though. Like, okay, we like that messy. Palm leaves are actually a bunch of smaller leaves coming off of one big stem. So it's okay to be messy. Let's try another one. We're gonna do this for all of them. So same thing still, C shapes. Okay, all the way down. These C shapes always go on the bottom of the leaf. So here we put it on the bottom, not on the top, not on the top. We put them on the bottom, bottom. Now over here, our C shapes are gonna go backwards because they always also point to the trunk. So let's go ahead, load up with paint. So you can see my C shapes go this way this time. One mistake I see students do is instead of making a C, they make circles like this on their paper. It will not look right. You're gonna end up with like, it's gonna look like you have bubbles on your palm tree, not actual palm leaves. Okay, now I find it easier to turn my paper to do it for this next part. So I'm gonna do that. Wait, I have a palm tree there. Now, if you wanted to add more palm leaves, let's say I feel like this is too empty here, okay? I'm gonna add another thick to thin line. Maybe it'll just go like that. Now this one goes straight up, so what's considered the bottom of this? Well, when we do this, we are actually going to be making more of a like mountain shape, like this, because it's going away from us. So mountain, 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 okay? And mountain, mountain, mountain. Or a hill. I guess I should be saying hill, not mountain. You don't have to add that extra one if you don't want to. You can also add some other littler ones, so thick to thin line. And I'm just going to make my C shapes even smaller. Right, so as you add those other ones that make it look kind of different, it actually also makes them look more realistic too as you go. So, I mean, you guys can just do the 4 leaves for this one. Oops. May take you a little bit to be able to learn exactly where those C shapes go. You'll get it. Okay, I'm going to paint one on my own. If you want to keep watching, you absolutely can. If you don't want to watch, you can go ahead and turn it off and start working on your sheet. Go over it again. I'm gonna make this one a little lumpy bumpy, I think, on purpose. Yeah. We're gonna go now thick to thin. Oops, that was not a great thick to thin line. You really want your lines to be thin at the end, otherwise when you do your leaves, they don't look quite right. Yeah, I'm gonna go with that. Okay. Now I did say I would show you how to use the fan brush for this. C shapes are usually easiest, but I will show you this. I'm gonna do this on this one here. So if you're painting bigger palm trees, like bigger than half a sheet of paper, it might be easier for you. So you get paint on the end of this like we did before, but I want, again, almost nothing on here. So get rid of like all of it, okay? And now I still am doing that same motion with my brush. I just have to be much more careful about making those like motions smaller as I get towards the end. So this might be a little easier for you to see. So I am doing bigger C shape, and as I move my brush towards the end of that, I am making it much littler, like I'm picking up sooner. My actual shape itself goes from this to this. But it's real easy to mess up with these ones, to accidentally get off track with them. So I do usually recommend use the small brush unless you're doing big palm trees. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to do some more. Oops, see, too much paint there. Too much paint. Didn't give me that kind of scratchy edge that I wanted. Looking at this one, this feels a little weird. I'm gonna add a tiny bit of C shapes on the other side. So for this one, because it's going almost straight down towards us, you are still doing C shapes. They're kind of going down towards the end. Okay, now let's look. I think these ones look good. I think this one looks off. So I'm gonna get some more brush on my paint, but barely anything. And I'm gonna make it more wispy. Kind of looks more like it's like blown in the wind. Okay, I might add one up here because I think that gap is throwing me off too. So just maybe a little one. I'm gonna add one over here too. Yeah. Ooh, it's reflecting a little bit. Okay. So If you don't end up knowing what you want to do for your palm tree, you can always just draw exactly what you used as a template here, where it's just the one with the 4 little ones coming off of it, and then add some if you want. Totally up to you. If you don't feel successful with these 2 trees quite yet, grab a blank piece of paper, try some more. I want you to have the hang of using all these brushes in these different methods because it'll come in handy with whatever you decide to paint, trees or anything else. All right, I will see you next for our painting trees number 6, which will be blending.